Kia ora, everybody. There must be something with optometrists and photographers. It might be sitting in a dark room all day looking at lenses, because plenty of my colleagues whip out the camera and get out there and take photos, but unlucky fellas and fellasses, nothing's as good as this man here. Talman, how are you doing, bro?
You're too kind, mate. I'm doing awesome. Thanks for having me on.
Oh, absolutely. It's been an absolute pleasure, and one that I've been trying to track down for, I don't know, 6 months maybe, but it's pretty awesome to get you on here. Mate, what did you get up to last weekend? I know we couldn't talk last week because you were on the route burn. What happened on the weekend?
So we're on the route burn. We, along with a bunch of other lower ambassadors, hiked from the Milford side over to the Glenorchy side. We battled through like 2 days of torrential rain, got absolutely soaked. My phone broke, my cameras were lucky to come out the other side, but we had an absolute blast of a time. And I'm like desperate to get back to see it and actually see all of Lake Harris in its glory, not just a cloudy and moody mess that it was.
Nice. And how good is it, and how short are our memories when you're out on an expedition like that, and at the time you're going through hell, but you get out of it and go, man, I can't wait to get back to that.
Oh, totally. It's, there were elements of it that were a bit of type 2 fun. When the wind picks up and so it's fine to be wet, but when it starts getting wet and cold, that's when it gets a bit more miserable. I remember on the second day, we climbed from Lake Mackenzie up to the Harris Saddle, and, that's supposed to be the most spectacular bit, and we just couldn't see anything. We could see the kind of leading lines into what was supposed to be this epic mountainous landscape. It's definitely a little bit disheartening, but I think, at the same time, I made that conscious decision just to be like, well, I can't change the weather. I might as well make the most of it and have a blast. And we're in a group of 6, and me and my friend Rachel, we ended up arriving at the kind of Harris Saddle almost an hour after the rest of the group, because we just kept stopping to take these moody as photos and got super soaked. So you just got to make the most of it, I guess.
Nice, yeah. Man. So what's your most important piece of kit apart from the camera, obviously, when you're out in the middle of nowhere like Fieldland?
I can't say just one piece. I have to say off the bat, you need to have, a good jacket. I think something that's waterproof, something that's windproof, that'll keep you a little bit warm when you layer it. On this trip, I was actually trialing out 2 new pieces of equipment that I've never used before. One was hiking poles. I've always thought they looked like real dorky and were for chums. But after using them, I'm a complete convert. They were so handy in terms of making my life a whole lot easier, especially going up hills. And then the other piece of equipment I was using was something called an body balance bag. And essentially it's like a 12-litre pack that sits on your chest strap. And the whole idea is it puts the weight in front of you, which helps level out your posture, even out your weight distribution in your pack. And that also made a huge difference to how my endurance, I guess you'd say, it made life a whole lot easier. I was able to keep going for longer, and just 2 little things that made a real big difference. And it's really important, when you're hiking and you've got I had 2 camera bodies, 4 lenses, time-lapse equipment, spare batteries, everything like that. So much weight, tripods, you're carrying more than the average tramper. So yeah, it just made my life a whole lot easier. So
nice, man. It's awesome to hear firsthand that pack does work. I was reading about it in a Trampers magazine in a hut I was in before Christmas, and I would definitely go with you on the hiking poles, especially up in the mountains. And you got a pack on. It's good to have that extra point of contact, I guess you'd call it. So, mate, we've probably let everybody know here that you're a photographer, but who is Talman today, brother?
Who am I? I'm 26-year-old nature frother, Kiwi, born and bred. I used to be a mortgage broker. I used to work for an online retailer called Mighty Ape as an account manager. I did a business degree, started off heading down that way, and was never creative. And then just over 3 years ago, I picked up a camera for the first time and fell in love with it. And now here I am, kind of 3 years later, doing it full time. I have a book. All this crazy stuff's happened. I love freediving. I love spearfishing, boating, getting out on the water. Growing up in Auckland is a huge part of my life. I live in Christchurch now, just so I can be closer to the mountains, and all the beautiful places that are down here. I can get to anywhere in the South Island in a day's drive. Love rugby. Played rugby for years for North Harbour. East Coast Bays specifically was my club. Snowboarding, a little bit of hunting here and there, fishing, that kind of stuff. Yeah.
Nice, mate. You're a Kiwi man's man with a devil of flair, I'd have to say. That takes us in. How the hell do you go from 3 years never picking up a camera to where you're at now, mate? What was the process?
I wish I knew. My brother moved to Queenstown. So I'm the oldest of 5 siblings. I got 3 younger brothers and a younger sister, so big family. And my brother Isaac moved to Queenstown from Auckland, and we had this massive, like all the boys, we jumped in the car, did this massive road trip down to the South Island. And I'd been to the South Island a couple of times. I went to Christchurch. I did Outward Bound and up in Marlborough Sounds, but I never really explored it. And we did this, all the boys, all the brothers, big road trip. And I remember the first time coming down, the first glimpse of the West Coast. You're heading over, and you come over the hill, and it's like the left is just mountainous, rugged coastline, and you've got all this beautiful bush leading down to this massive ocean, and then you've got like knee-cow palms, and it was just an awe-inspiring view. And that was like kind of the first moment where I like opened my eyes and was just like, wow, like, I am like 22, 23. I've never seen this, and I live in New Zealand. I call myself a Kiwi, and that feeling just continued as we traveled down the West Coast, and we went to Punakaiki, we went to Fox Glacier, right through Haast, and then into Wanaka, Queenstown. And it was just this kind of mind-blowing experience. And I was like, how have I not seen this before? And at the time I had recently picked up a cheap and nasty little $200 Canon something or other, and I took a bunch of terrible photos that I just thought were amazing, and shared them on social media, and it just kind of went from there. One thing led to another, and a few months later, I traveled down to Wanaka specifically to go to what they call an Insta Meet, where I met a whole bunch of awesome photographers who had pretty sizable Instagram accounts and were doing cool things. Became really good friends with a lot of them, and still are really good, close friends with them. And kind of things just started rolling from there until in midway through 2016, an opportunity came up for me to head to the States with juicy camper vans and do a month-long road trip. And I'd obviously used all my annual leave and all my unpaid annual leave and everything I possibly could. And it was kind of like, well, why don't I, take this, make the jump now. It was a huge kind of risk at the time. And I didn't have heaps of work lined up. I didn't have heaps of savings. But I thought it was, now or never. And took the plunge and kind of, haven't looked back really. It's been pretty cool. Straight away, I did that trip. It was incredible. And then not long after that, I won the New Zealand Geographic Young Photographer of the Year, which was huge at the time, and still is. Gave me a lot of credibility, and it just kind of snowballed from there, really, until here I am. I can't believe it's been, like a year and a half or something crazy like that.
Nice, bro. So it's probably great looking back on it and taking stock, but I'm sure there are some challenging moments, i.e. when you don't have any leave left and you're given an opportunity. What's the self-talk like? Because obviously, like you said, it's taking the plunge. It's unknown, and it's outside the norms of obviously having a salary.
It's definitely not having a salary. I don't know if you've ever read Tim Ferriss's 4-Hour Workweek, or are familiar with it at all.
Familiar, mate.
But yeah, I mean, growing up in business, a lot of the conversations that me and my friends were always having were about side projects and hustling and grinding. And I think probably one of the things that really pushed me in that direction was to write down everything that could go wrong, and to physically name it. And
Fair setting.
Pardon?
Fair setting.
Yeah. And said it, like, what am I afraid of? And I sat down and I was like, well, if it all turns to custard and it doesn't work out, I've got plenty of work experience, I've got plenty of life experience, I've got a degree, I've got friends and family who would help me out if it came to that. And you could look at it as failure, but I wouldn't say that it would ever be failure, but more, how would I say it? It would just be, what do they say? One more way how not to do it. I'm sure you've heard it. One of those inspirational quotes you see on like Facebook or Instagram. But once I'd kind of rationalized all of that and looked at it, I realized it really wasn't that big of a deal. And it was like, hey, why not? If this does come off and it does work out, I'm going to be doing what I love, what I'm passionate about, and how awesome is that? And so what I did is I said to myself, I'm going to give myself 2 years to achieve it, to get to a point where I was able to support myself in a healthy way, aka not eating 2-minute noodles for dinner and cans of spaghetti and whatever else. And so, I'm kind of like a year and a half through that. And I really believe that, come the end of the year, I'm going to be sticking with what I'm doing because it's going really well and I'm loving it.
Epic, man. I think I came across you on that Instagram meetup somehow from somewhere, but I've been following you for a while. I don't know if that sounds fanboyish or not, but the beginning of last year, you started off the Sunrise Sunset Challenge, mate. What motivated you to get up and stay up late?
That was not something I ever recommend doing. It's like every sunrise, every sunset, like the sunrise is the earliest, the sunset is the latest, and then trying to do it at like different locations every day. That was mental. But for like the longest time, I'm quite a goal orientated person, and I love to set goals and to achieve them. And so I would always set myself this like crazy kind of New Year's resolution. And this was even, going back before I did photography, it was like, I want to see 52 sunrises in a year. So one a week. I want to see 500 shooting stars in a year. And then, kind of more typical things like I'm going to give up chocolate for a year, or fizzy drink, or takeaways, or, all these kind of things. And so I've been doing it for, since I was a teenager. And last year I kind of got to the 3rd of January and I hadn't set one of these goals yet. And I was like, well, I've seen every single sunrise and every single sunset so far this year. Why don't we just do it for a whole month? And if it works out well, I'll do it for a whole year. safe to say, I got to the end of the month, and I don't think there was any way I physically could have kept going for the whole year without it totally destroying me. But it was a really awesome thing to pursue. It taught me a lot about light, a lot about photography. I captured a really awesome portfolio of sunrise and sunset images. It was a great talking point, and it was really cool seeing how the community just rallied around me and thrived on this crazy challenge. It enjoyed me suffering, and
Nice, mate. I think it was a 24-hour period, or maybe even 48 hours, where you took one incredible image of Rangitoto, and then you were at Piha in a storm. I don't know why you took an umbrella out there, mate, but tell us what that period of time was like.
Yeah. So we woke up, it was a Saturday, woke up to the best sunrise I had probably ever seen to that point. And I went down to my local Browns Bay beach, and I was losing my mind. It was incredible. It was like total cloud nine. And then I actually was photographing a wedding that day out at Piha. So I then went to Piha and spent all day with this lovely couple shooting this wedding, and slowly watching the weather just deteriorate. And then it came to the end of the wedding, and it was time to shoot sunset, and I was just like, there's no way, like nothing's going to happen. And it was just like torrential rain just started bucketing down. It was, had the umbrella out, it was sideways, it was doing nothing. I was up at the lookout point at Piha, and trying to get a view, like looking down the beach, and I was almost like afraid to drive home. It was that windy. It was like seriously relentless. I was getting pushed around. Like, I'm not a small guy, I'm a big dude, and I was getting like pushed around by the weather. I still don't know why I even bothered. Like, I had my tripod out for some reason. It was just, I don't know what I was thinking. But yeah, the best and the worst on the same day. I think it goes to show that old saying, red sky at night, shepherd's delight, red sky in morning, shepherd's warning, or in this case, photographer's warning.
Absolutely. So you said it created a big portfolio, but really helped you learn about the lighting and things. For any up-and-coming photographer, what would you say would be, I don't know, 3 key factors or things that you made mistakes with that you'd hand on?
The first one would be not going out in bad weather. So often like people like, oh, there's a storm coming, don't go outside, blah, blah, blah. But if you're wanting to create dramatic, interesting images, often you need dramatic light. And obviously that's what a storm brings, because you've got these big thunderous storm clouds and you've got rain, and you need the big bright colorful sunrises and sunsets. All that color is light reflecting off the cloud and the particles in the air. So before I was a photographer, my idea of a good sunrise was a beautiful clear morning with no clouds in the sky, and now it's changed to become, I want all these clouds. So the first thing I would say is head out if you're shooting a sunrise or a sunset when there's dramatic light. Yes, your strike color rate is probably not going to be as high. There will be lots of times you'll just get gray and nothing else. But when you do capture, and it does, put on a display, you're going to capture something that's unreal. And that's what you're after. The second thing would be, let's say sunrise is at 7 a.m. That means as a photographer, if you want to capture those beautiful colors, you got to be there at 6 a.m. And that's because you get the beautiful light, kind of an hour to half an hour to 15 minutes before the sunrise, depending on, the time of the year, whereabouts you are and the conditions. So it's really important to get there early. it's not good enough just to rock up at, kind of 7:00 and hop out of your car and then wonder why you didn't capture this amazing display. So you've got to be committed. Thirdly, I should have been thinking about the third one while I was talking about the first and the second. I would say shoot often, and like in your area. So shoot locally as often as you can. So by going out and photographing frequently, you're going to begin to learn the weather patterns. You're going to begin to learn when the wind is doing X, the sky will likely do Y. When the clouds are doing, Y, the sky is going to do X. And you'll begin to learn what's going to look good and what type of light. Whether, in Christchurch, is it going to look better, out at the coast or up in the Port Hills? Are you going to get like a reversal where, you've got your sun setting in the west, but all the colors in the east? And as you begin to learn that, it's going to increase your strike rate. And a lot of those things will be transferable to when you're out shooting in maybe a place that's not as familiar. Yeah, and plus, the more you shoot, the better you'll get. It's just simple maths.
Yeah, practice makes perfect. Okay.
Yeah.
So, you reeled off a number of things that you're into. What's something that you do that a lot of people say, "Talman, that's a bit weird, man," and why do you do it?
That's a bit weird. Is spearfishing weird? I don't know.
Holding your breath underwater without a tank is pretty weird, man. What's the buzz you get out of that?
I love spearfishing. Me and my brothers, is something that we do together. I think the whole idea of it's kind of like going back caveman styles. It's like the thrill of the hunt. It's you're underwater. You're looking for fish to shoot, to eat, and I think in terms of when it comes to being sustainable, it's spearfishing is by far the most sustainable type of fishing in the world, because as the fisherman or the hunter is probably a more appropriate term, you're able to look at your fish and size up and decide which fish you take, which fish you leave, and I think that's a really awesome side of it. And also something that's becoming more prevalent in my own journey is 92% of New Zealand is underwater, and like not many people realize that. New Zealand has a huge jurisdiction, beyond our shores, and it's been really cool over the years being able to explore that. 5 of the 7 sea turtles visit New Zealand. Did you know that? Like, nobody knew that. I didn't know that until like a few months ago. And it's there's so much there for us to see and explore. And spearfishing and freediving has been a medium where I can do that, and also put some food on the plate. It's something I do with my brothers, and I've had some really cool experiences with seeing and catching big fish. Also, I've had a lot of really cool shark encounters, and yeah, it's something I really, really enjoy, and I think is a huge part of me growing up. And more recently, I got myself underwater housing, so I've been enjoying taking some photos off the other side of New Zealand.
Awesome, man. Just staying with the freediving, what do you do to extend your time underwater? Have you got any practices that you do? I'm a big follower of Wim Hof, and I know that's a bad idea to do underwater because you might black out. What do you do to keep sane, brother?
There's a few things. So firstly, I try to stay away from dairy a few months, or like a week at least before I jump in the water, just to clean out the sinuses, so that when I'm breathing, it's a lot easier when I'm in the water. Milk essentially produces mucus that blocks it up, so don't drink milk. before you go diving. Secondly, stick away from coffee, energy drinks, stuff like that. Before I go diving, I want to decrease my heart rate. To date, my personal best breath hold is 3.5 minutes. Then thirdly, how I achieved at 3.5 minutes was training in a pool. So if I'm going to be going for a free dive really fairly regularly, there's a couple of cool real communities in Auckland, one of them being Learn to Spearfish, that hold weekly spearfishing trainings in pools, which I used to attend fairly regularly when I was living up in Auckland, which is essentially, holding your breath for 20 seconds, then 30 seconds, then 45, then a minute 15, minute and a half, 2 minutes, and so on, in a controlled environment. It's not something that I would ever recommend doing without supervision, because if you do black out, that's game over, or you're going to be in a bad way. So it is really important you're doing it with someone who's in the pool with you, attentive, and knows what you're doing, but also has the appropriate training to know what to do if something does go wrong. So don't just go out into your pool and start trying to see how long you can hold your breath for. That's kind of. And then I think it's also, it's with everything, it's about being in the zone. It's about having a clear mind, being relaxed, peaceful, happy. And, that goes beyond just the moment. It goes back into your personal life, outside of, diving or spearfishing or anything. It's, are you happy with, your job? Do you feel healthy? Are you fit? Are you active? Are you doing what you're passionate about? Are you being creative? And all of these things. So
nice, man. Excuse the pun, but that's probably why spearfishing is such a deeper dive for people. You could look at it and say, oh, that's fishing, that's catching a fish. What are you doing that for? But what you've just touched on there is a full holistic approach to a pursuit that something that I really like finding is things that tap into your parasympathetic nervous system, keep you calm, like you said, lower your heart rate.
Yeah,
and that's awesome, bro.
There's nothing like the feeling when you're underwater and it feels like you could just stay there forever. I've had that, a number of times, and it's a phenomenal feeling. Like just surround. Like I had it recently when I was out at the Mokuhina Islands in January with my brothers, and we just had a massive school of like kingfish around us. We had amongst the school there was trevally. We had 3 or 4 big bronze whaler sharks circling us as well. We had midwater snapper. We had just this like, we were in 30 meters of water and we could see roughly 25 meters. The best visibility I've ever had, and it was just this moment of zen. There's nothing like it. It's, yeah.
I think that sends shivers, and I'll be sure to link that Learn to Spearfish in the show notes, because that sounds pretty awesome, man. Going from the sea back to the mountains, and you touched on having that parka with you when you're out on the route burn. You were doing some work with mountain safety. What was that all about, bro?
So did some work recently with the New Zealand Mountain Safety Council, essentially a non-for-profit who have set up to, equip and train people with best practices and keep them safe in the mountains. I've been sharing a few stories over there and talking about, a couple of incidents I've had in the mountains where stuff has gone wrong, but, I've been prepared and that's got me through the other side. I really love the work that they're doing, because, a lot of the places that I do go are often remote, are, off the grid, away from, out of cell phone service, or away from, you can't just rock up to the, cafe and get yourself a coffee and breakfast. So it's really cool to be able to, like, they're dangerous, essentially. They are dangerous, and you have to take certain precautions. So it's really cool being able to partner and work with them to get that message out there, because essentially, as a photographer and someone with a social influence, I am influencing people to go to these places, and it does weigh on my conscience at times about some of these places and the dangers that people could be putting themselves in if they go there without being safe or knowing what to do in certain situations or looking after themselves. So yeah, it's good to get that message out there.
Absolutely. And am I right in saying that you can hire personal locator beacons from Mountain Safety Council? Is that right?
Yeah. You can hire personal PLBs from Mountain Safety Council, as well as, a lot of the dock officers, Bivouac, and a bunch of other outdoor retailers. It's something that, for the small, cost of hiring, it's so well worth it. If I'm heading out somewhere that's remote and I don't have cell phone signal, or something could go wrong, I'm always going to take one. And I think other people should too. I think I was just reading the other day, someone in Mount Aspiring National Park broke his leg, was under a tree, and like the luckiest man in the world, because someone who was up at I think it might have been the Liverpool Hut, was out of their comfort zone and activated their personal locator beacon. And so the chopper team came out, found him along the way, rescued him, then went up to the hut and rescued the person who actually set off the PLB, and then got them both out. So, in his case, if he had a PLB, he should have had one. He would have been if that hadn't happened, he would have really wished he had one. So, worked out well, but it's just, another example of things can go wrong. It's not always a reflection of your ability or inability. It can happen to anyone, no matter how experienced you are. So you're better to be safe than sorry, I think.
Absolutely. Now you spoke about having a few brothers around you. What was Talman like being the older brother? He's 5 years old, and how does that show through today, man?
I think being the oldest, huge level of responsibility. I've been forging the path for my siblings coming through. And I think, a lot of people think, I'd rather be the youngest because they get away with more. In my case, I've loved being the oldest. I've loved being able to do things first. I've loved being able to, help guide and encourage my brothers through, some of the challenges that they've had with, like primary, intermediate, high school, because I've been there, done that. I think I'd consider myself quite a natural leader, and I think a lot of that comes from, growing up in a large family and, leading my siblings. And I think also communication is something that has come quite naturally to me because, you're always competing for attention with five of you. So, you gotta do something to make yourself heard to mum and dad.
Us, mate. That's probably why you have such good Instagram videos. It's always a pleasure tuning into your circle and seeing what you're up to, mate. Last year, speaking of the Instagram story, you were doing a big push for votes for the Discovery internship. Was it? You were up against a lad from Invercargill, which is where I'm from, Sam Ducres. I think he did quite well himself. But tell us about that experience, and also if you could carry on the story that we were talking about before.
Yeah, totally. So I got tagged in this thing on Facebook about, Discovery Channel looking for an intern, and it was this opportunity to travel to Sydney, Singapore, Italy, Iceland, London, New York, LA. I think that's from memory, because I ended up telling so many people about this thing at the time. And to go and take photos, to go to the headquarters and meet the people, to create little travel videos and write a blog for Discovery Channel. It was a huge opportunity. and kind of went through this massive like voting process. I think originally they had like 80,000 entries, and I got to the final 50, and then it was the final 25, and they had this, I was crazy getting people to vote for me, and ended up coming, in the end, it was like something like 85,000 votes in like a week or two. I can't remember the numbers now, but it was crazy. It was like, I had, all the local Facebook groups rooting for me, and I got on the radio, and, all this like awesome stuff was happening. It was really cool seeing, this massive team of people just supporting me. And it was like, old friends from high school that I hadn't seen in years cropping up out of nowhere, sharing, this story on Facebook and encouraging their friends and family to vote. It was so cool. And then it kind of came down to the final 5, and we all had an interview process, and unfortunately I didn't end up getting the job. They picked someone else, a guy called Ben Micah, who is an incredible photographer, but also had a huge amount more experience with video creation than I did. And that was, what they were really looking for. And, props to him. He's awesome. I followed him on his trip. He created some awesome videos and had an absolute blast. And that was really cool. So obviously, I was a little bit bummed about the whole, missing out. These things happen in life, and to kind of get over it, so to speak, I flew to Queenstown, and my friend Liz and I headed out on a rafting trip. We rafted the Landsborough River for like 3 days. An awesome opportunity. And so that was a year ago now. But on the way down, it was this like incredible sunset out of the plane. Probably the best sunset I've ever seen out of a plane window. It was like the clouds. We had this like layer of cloud, and they're all fluffy dome shapes on top, and the sun was coming through underneath, shining up, and they were all radiating like gold. It was incredible. And I had a whole aisle to myself, and so I had both my cameras working overtime, and took a bunch of cool photos. And kind of as it went down, the person in front of me turned around and said, "Hey, are you Talman? I think I follow you on Instagram." And it was this crazy moment, and we got chatting, and it turned out her partner owned a publishing company, and they were looking to publish a New Zealand landscape photography book, and asked if I'd be interested in talking with them more about it. So I was like, oh yeah, this is awesome. Kind of not thinking too much about it, like, who knows, take it, as a grain of salt. And then the next day we caught up for lunch, and I rock up, and they had like 5 different books, and they were like, okay, we want 120 photos, and we want it to be this many pages, and this is what we're going to sell it for. And it was, straight in the deep end, and it was all full on, and it was so crazy because I kind of look back on that now and reflect upon it. And if I'd got the Discovery internship, I wouldn't have been on that flight to Queenstown, and I quite potentially never would have gone down this whole journey of creating a book, which has been a hugely rewarding process, and has taught me a lot about myself and about my photography. So it's funny how the universe works sometimes.
Nice, man. And back to Tim Ferriss, I think that's one of his questions in the new book Tribe of Mentors, and I'm looking forward to that arriving on my doorstep. And that's about what was a failure that turned into a absolute victory, and that'd to be your story for when Tim Ferriss interviews you, I'd say. At this point in time, anyway, bro. So you've got a book, and it's out, and it's around. Where can people find it, brother? Because your work's awesome.
So I don't know how, but it's ended up in all the Paper Plus stores in New Zealand, which is like crazy awesome. It's available on my website, and it's available in a bunch of like kind of touristy stores around New Zealand. They've got it up for sale. Yeah, I don't know, it's pretty crazy. It's 138 images, 168 pages. It's a full journey from starting in Northland, heading through all the regions in New Zealand. It's, got my favorite photos, and it's also got something I did a little bit different to other photo books is I've actually created like a 2 to 3 sentence like Instagram caption, I guess I would say, about each of the images. So it kind of talks about, maybe what I was doing in the photo, like was I in a helicopter, was I on a mountain, what happened before, what happened after, who was I with, these kind of things, which really, it's a way of exuding me and my character and my personality through the book and making it a whole lot more interesting, because most of those kind of books include the history of the location and the photography information and the EXIF data, and although those things are really important and can be quite cool, I wanted to make something that was a lot more reflective of me and, frankly, like the epic adventures I'd gone on to put this all together. So yeah, it's been wicked.
Awesome, bro. So you are at Talman on Instagram, and you mentioned your website. Is there, again, mention that website, and where else can people find you, bro?
Yeah, so my website is talmanmadsen.com. My Facebook is Talman Madsen Photography. Instagram is at Talman. Snapchat is Talman1. YouTube, Talman Madsen. There's a whole bunch of them. Twitter, Talman Madsen. Yeah, I think those are the main ones.
Nice. And we'll get that in the show notes too, because people need to find you, bro. It's a good channel.
Cheers, bro.
Nice, man. Like you said, this has been a journey, and I'm sure it's not over for you. But what would be something that you'd like to leave people with? Something that you've learned out of, it's been a short period of time, or things that you were thinking when you were back working, or maybe just a quote that you live life by that you'd like to share with the audience.
Yeah. I think the biggest thing that I have been meditating on lately and thinking a lot about, and I guess just breaking down and then building back up, is a quote, and I don't know where I actually got it from, unfortunately, but it's that success happens when preparedness meets opportunity. I'm thinking back through, everything that's happened. A lot of times, it's because I've been prepared that when that opportunity came along, I was able to be successful in it. And, that goes down from the little things in regards to your time management and being prepared, so that if today an opportunity were to land on your desk to go traveling or to another part of the country or whatever it is, you would be able to say yes because you had ticked off everything you needed to be done, rather than saying, I'm going to relax now because I don't have any work for the rest of the week. And so, it's being prepared in that area. It's being prepared in terms of like having your camera gear in your camera bag, set up, batteries charged, memory cards wiped, so that if, there was a huge aurora tonight, you could jump on a plane and fly to Dunedin and then drive 2 hours and capture the biggest aurora in like 20 years, which I did. It's preparedness is, looking at the weather. It's, replying to emails promptly and on time. And I've found that, the more prepared I am, which was also the harder I work, the luckier I become, and the more opportunities that have came along that have led to and been successful. And I think, there will be disappointments. There have been failures. There are times that I've looked back and said, I could have done this better. I could have done that better. And that's being a human. That's part of nature, part of life. But I think it's often when you start to think cognitively about these things, when you start to think about, setting goals and writing them down, and, doing things like meditating and taking time to visualize things, it all starts to come together. And so I would encourage everyone to, if you're wanting to be an up-and-coming photographer, I mean, nobody wants to be an up-and-coming photographer. You want to be a photographer. So if you want to be a photographer, if you want to be successful in this or in anything else you do, the first thing I would say is to start telling yourself, change your self-talk, to begin to believe in yourself, to take opportunities, to put yourself out there. You mentioned before you really enjoy the Instagram videos that I make. I wasn't at all confident talking in front of a camera. I was confident, but I sucked at it, put it like that. And so I just worked at it, and I just forced myself to do it, and forced myself to, when you like do the video and it plays back and you hear your own voice and you're like, oh shit, I sound like an idiot. You just got to get over that, and you do eventually. And it's, practicing it. It's the same with taking photos. Practice. Sure, I haven't been doing this a long time, but in January alone last year, like you said, I shot every single sunrise, every single sunset, each at a new location. It took me, 8 to 10 hours a day to do that. By the time you included driving there, driving home, sometimes I was hiking an hour and a half to and from the location. And then I was photographing, right from blue hour through to sunrise, golden hour. It was a huge time commitment. And I got to the end of the month and I realized I've just photographed more in a month than a lot of people do in their entire year, and you've got to be getting out there and doing it all the time, and making the most of those opportunities. Yeah. I mean, there's no 3-step plan to becoming a photographer. I can't tell you do A, B, and C, and then boom, all of a sudden you're going to have massive contracts and people lining up wanting to, give you your money and have you travel the world for them and blah, blah, blah. If there was, everyone would be doing it because it's flipping awesome. Like, I love what I do and I'm so passionate about it. That's not how it works. So go and work hard, make sure you're prepared, and when those opportunities come along, you will be successful.
Right, that you've nailed it there, man. And I'll let you carry on with your evening because I'm sure you've got plenty more to do. You're an absolute champion. Thanks so much for coming on board. It was awesome to get this underway, and I'm looking forward to following the journey as it continues. Cheers, bro.
Yeah, totally, dude. Hey, thanks heaps for having me. And you.
Cheers, bro. Yes. Awesome.